Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Resilience Reflex Show, and I'm your host, Zaheen Nanji, where I help you make resilience your first reflex using my three-step method. Well, today I'm so excited because we have an amazing guest with us, horror author J THorn. I met him last year in Cleveland when I went to an author marketing conference, and his story was, I found, the truest sense of resilience as an author. And being an author, believe me, I also have a book, but it's only 60,000 words. No, yeah, it's only 60 pages, and that's not even nothing. That's like an ebook that you can get for free somewhere, But that alone, like, just to focus and know the chapters and start somewhere, it was a lot of work that I had to get someone to help me out. And so things like that are abstract, we say, oh, it's so easy for authors to write. Well, it is and it isn't, but we're going to learn about that through J THorn. Before we go on, though, I would like to introduce my co-host, Kathy. Kathy, why don't you come on and tell us something about yourself?
Great. Thanks, Zaheen. My name is Kathleen Caldwell. I am a registered holistic nutritionist and a health and wellness coach. And I work with menopausal women in all stages of menopause. And in working with them, I have helped them to lose weight, to alleviate their hot flashes, to sleep better, and to have more energy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kathy. So today, not only with interviewing J THorn, we're also going to play a game with you as the viewers and also with Kathy. So feel free to get onto the Q&A chat room, which I'm just going to turn on right now, where you can have your questions on, and we will try to answer them the best we can, but we only have 30 minutes, and now we have less than that. So for those of you who have missed the last two episodes, this is episode number 3. The last two episodes, make sure you join my Resilience Reflex community that you see right up here in the corner. Well, maybe it's on the other side for you, but here you go, where you can access my 4-part series on the Resilient Health video series. So you'll also get that if you were to join that. All you have to do is click to be invited in, and I will let you in. So make sure you do that. The next time, episode number 4, we're going to have laughter yoga specialist. So be ready to laugh out loud and have fun, where she will show you how laughter yoga can help you de-stress. And I have done that a few times, and I can tell you how much better I feel after I'm done a session. So make sure you tune into that, and that's next Sunday at the same time. So before we get J THorn on, I'm so excited that he's here, and I'm looking forward to this interview. I just wanted to share with you the 7 traits of resiliency. So as we go through his story, I want you to tap into those traits, and we will also bring that up during the show. But I want you to start noticing what he did and where we can, and how you found, or where you found the trait. So the first one is purpose in life. Now, of course, I would want to know what made J THorn want to write horror. Okay, but he has a purpose, and we want to know all about that. The second one is master problem solvers. Okay, so how did he master, and I know he went through a lot when he started, but how did he start to solve those issues? The third one is embracing change. I find that a lot of people who show resilience really embrace change easily. So we'll find out how J THorn did that. Fourth one, very, very important. Please be optimistic. Okay. And we'll find out again in the story where that came. Next one, build your network. Again, you'll find resilient people build their network around them, and I know J THorn will show you and tell you how he did that. This is one thing that I have found where when you're stuck, having that network really, really helps. All right, and the last one, playback to build your self-esteem. So what do I mean by playback? Playback is when you have a problem or some kind of worry or you're stuck. Play back into the past and find out where did you have your strengths and how can you use that now to rebuild your self-esteem so you can get unstuck and move forward. Okay, so you got all that? Let's start. All right, J THorn, come on and introduce yourself and say hi, and I'm going to read your bio.
Hi, Zaheen. Hi, Kathy.
Hi.
Hi, Jay.
Okay, so a little bit about him. He is the 100th most popular author in horror, science fiction, action, and adventure. He has sold more than 130,000 books worldwide. In March 2014, THorn held the #5 position in horror alongside his idols Dean Koontz and Stephen King, where they were at #4. So Dean was at #4 and Stephen King was at #2. Wow, that's awesome. And he's also an official active member of the Horror Writers Association. Now, Jay, I have to ask you this. Why horror?
Yeah, this is a question I get asked a lot, although it's usually phrased in a different way. When people find out I write horror, they think that I have a dungeon at home and I'm sacrificing goats in my backyard, and I'm this really strange guy, and I am strange, but I'm pretty normal too. I have a mortgage, I have a family, I do normal stuff. So the question around horror, why write it? And I think I would preface my reasoning by saying that I don't write gory horror. So there are things like slasher films that it's more gratuitous violence, and it's violence for the sake of violence, and that's not the type of stuff that I write. I write more of sort of psychological, suspenseful, paranormal. If you think like old Alfred Hitchcock, that's the type of horror I write. And the reason I think, and I write it because it kind of chose me. So I didn't sit down and sort of map out like, okay, what kind of writer am I going to be, or what kind of story am I going to tell? I just kind of let it out. I had stories inside, and I have stories in me, and I kind of get them out, and that's sort of where they ended up being. That's where they're classified as. So I just kind of go with that. Although I write dark fantasy, I write children's books, I write a lot of different stuff, but I really never sort of chose horror. It's just kind of, I guess, who I became.
That's awesome, because nowadays I find that horror is in, thanks to Zombie Nation or something like that, right?
Yeah.
In fact, in the last couple of weeks, and I'm always listening to the radio, it's been quite interesting that we've had quite a number of authors that have been interviewed just because they write horror, and I was kind of surprised. And I think it's just, and I don't know if it's a fad right now, but I don't think it's a fad because it was there before. Maybe it kind of stopped for a while, but now it's back in again. Is that true, Jay?
Well, I think if you looking at it from sort of a popularity standpoint or sales, clearly romance is driving most of the marketplace right now. A lot of it has to do with the fact that 80% of the readers in the United States are women, and women love to read romance. But the great thing about women readers is they read a lot of stuff. So when you get down to the statistics of it, 20% of the readers are male, but they only read a certain type of book, and whereas women read a very diverse, lots of genres. So I don't know if horror is in, if it's out, how well it's selling. I know it's not, it doesn't sell as well as some other genres, but I think what's interesting about horror and the reason why it's sort of stuck around for a while, for a long time. If you even go back to the 1800s and Edgar Allan Poe and H.P. Lovecraft in the early 20th century, I think it's there because it's a genre that people can relate to. We all have fears, and we all have to deal with those fears. And I think that's what really good horror taps into. It allows you to sort of experience those feelings in a natural and safe way, especially in a book. And it's a very humanistic story, and there's a lot of elements of horror. So in horror you can have romance, and you can have action adventure, and you can have suspense, and you can have all of that in a horror book. And so I think for that reason, at least for me as a reader, I find it very appealing.
That's a great way to actually talk about horror, because yeah, it's all about fears and just kind of feeling safe about it. I've never heard that before, so that's great. So I know in Cleveland you mentioned that you actually tried to model after Stephen King. So tell us your story about your first book and what happened after that, especially after when you put, I think it was your first or your second book on Amazon.
Yeah, it's people love it for me to tell this story, and I luckily now I have some distance from it, and so it's not as painful as it used to be. But I'm pretty transparent and honest with my story, and if you go to my webpage and click on the bio, that talk I gave in Cleveland is there, and you can rewatch it if you really want to get the gory details. But basically, what happened was I decided to publish when Amazon rolled out their Kindle Direct Publishing platform and allowed anyone the ability to upload a document and sell a book on their website. And this was in 2009, 2010, and I've been writing my whole life, but I've never been published, and so I didn't know what I'm doing. I still really don't know what I'm doing, but I really didn't know what I was doing back then. And the short story is that I uploaded a story that was not edited. It was it didn't have a great cover. It was sloppy, and I got crucified on the reviews, and it came really close to quitting. I mean, so I showed some of the reviews in Cleveland. Again, they're in that talk. It's a YouTube clip if people want to watch it, and they're still there. Like they're kind of like battle scars, but they were brutal and they were deserved. Like what people said was right, and I wasn't being as serious about it as I should have been, and I really learned. But I came really close to a point where I had the button hovering over the delete key in my KDP account. I was going to delete the book and just sort of walk away from it because it was so painful, and something inside me just said, you know what, just let it go, start writing the next book, get that one edited. And so I kind of picked up the pieces. And so, you said Stephen King, and I read On Writing, which is a great manual. Whether you write horror or technical manuals, you should read that book because it's just it's a writer's mindset. So I kind of use that as my blueprint. But the whole marketing piece, the whole publishing world, I was clueless about it, and I paid for it.
Wow. So you said that you were just kind of like on that brink where you thought, I'm just going to let this. Like a part of you, wanted to just give up, but then a part of you said, just let it go and do something else or write another book. But I'm sure something must have said to you, or you must have told yourself, or talked yourself into saying, or into learning something about what happened. So what were the learnings from that first book that you went through?
Yeah, I think the biggest learning for me in that whole experience was realizing that when you create art, whether it's a book or a poem or a painting or crochet, whatever your art is, whatever you create, that there will be people who will love it and people who will hate it, and you have to be prepared to hear that, and especially. For a book, when you put a book on Amazon and anyone can type up a review, and believe me, there are people who leave reviews on Amazon who do so just to get noticed, for better or worse. And as an artist, you have to be thick-skinned, and it's hard. And I almost folded it, but the learning came for me came in recognizing not everyone's going to like what I do. I'm going to make mistakes. I made a ton of mistakes on that first book. I talk about those now when I do my speaking engagements, as I did in Cleveland, but I learned from them and I don't make those mistakes again. So for me, the learning was recognizing that not everyone is going to love what I do, and I'm going to keep making mistakes, but I've found that in making those mistakes, I learn so much more than when I do things right. And I know that's a hard way to learn, but I think it's really the best way.
That's true. So Kathy, why don't we find out what kind of traits he used as he was talking there? I think, what do you think there?
I think definitely one would be embracing change.
Yes, and you know what? I have that too. So where do you think, what did he mention that kind of made you feel that he's embracing change?
Just, I think, to, as he said, the reviews weren't great, but just to let it go and keep on writing and, you know, learning and doing what he has to do, only better.
I agree. How about you, Jay?
Yeah, spot on. I think you got it.
We should have a buzzer or something. Ding, ding, ding.
I know.
I can't guarantee I have the answers though. You can't. I don't know if I'm not gonna write.
You know what? I know we have a clapping thing, but I don't know where it is. Anyways, and then the next one.
Yeah. I would think be optimistic.
I had that too.
Totally optimistic. Yes.
Yes. For sure. I found that just with that part about saying, you know, letting it go, I can do something else, or I can go back and edit that book, you know, that in itself was, you were just getting unstuck and moving forward and being optimistic. So now, if I can share too with the viewers, by the way, if you're just joining us, you're on the Resilience Reflex Show with Kathy, my co-host, as well as J THorn, who is an amazing horror author. So make sure you go on his website, jthorn.net. If I can share with the viewers what you mentioned in Cleveland, where you said, you know, something about, I lost my train of thought, about your covers, where even with your covers, where you would try and put one and see if that worked, and then you would change that. And tell us more about that, especially authors who need to hear this.
Yeah, I think one of the hardest things to do, especially if you are an artist who is now transitioning beyond a hobby. So if you create art because you love doing it, and art could be like, if you have a vegetable garden in your backyard, like, you're an artist. I think if you create things, you're an artist. And if you do it as a hobby, I think it's wonderful. And you don't have to think about any of this stuff. But for me, there was a certain point where my hobby started to cross over into something a little more serious, and I wanted it to be more serious. And so at that juncture, I think it's really hard for artists to divorce their creations from the business side of things. So you kind of have to set your artist hat aside, and you have to be a business person. And that's where there's a lot of problems. So it manifests itself in covers. We've all seen them. I've had them. So I'm not claiming I haven't done this, but you'll see a book with an awful cover, and whatever awful means to you. And when you drill down on that, typically what it is, it's like the author created it themselves, or they had a relative or a friend do it, and they told them exactly what to do, and they're too close to it. And so what I realized with my covers is that I kind of did that. I asked a friend to do them. I kind of did them on the cheap, and you know, I was too close to it, and I couldn't divorce myself from it. Same way with editing. Like you know, you have to get someone else to edit it and tell you how terrible certain things are, because in your mind, when you're reading them, they look great. So that was a process I had to go through with my covers, and I finally had to have the realization that that cover is a sales tool. It has nothing to do with the story. It has nothing to do with the book or me as a writer. It is the primary and the first contact I'm going to have with a potential reader. And so getting those covers and even redoing them, and I've done that for a few of the books where I realized that they were not quite up to snuff. Like they didn't sit next to some of the other books on the virtual shelf, and they weren't going to sell, and they didn't. So, but that's a really hard thing to do, and I still struggle with it. I think kill your darlings is kind of the phrase you hear in the writing business a lot. But it's kind of true. You have to be able to step back and look objectively at what you create as a business person if it's more than a hobby.
That's great, because now you're taking art and business and it's almost like a fusion, but yet you have to take it apart and look at it differently. Okay, Kathy, tell me what kind of traits we learned from there.
Well,
can I tell you one? Let's see if we
master
guessed it.
Master problem solver might be one.
That's exactly what I had in my head.
Okay, good.
Wow.
We're on the same train of thought.
Yes. Well, I think it's the guest, like it's bang on into everything, and we're just saying, this is it. This is making it easy for us. That's right. Master problem solving. So where do you think that came up in his story?
Just saying that he had to sit back and divorce himself from, look at what he was doing and realize there was a better way of going about it and what he needed to do.
Yeah. Was there anything else that you came up with? Any other trait?
I think somewhat a purpose, because definitely he knows what he needs to do in his business to be successful.
That's right. Yeah, that's right here. Purpose in life. Yes. Yeah. He needs to know what he wants to be able to be successful. That's right. And I think also, Jay, purpose is drawn also towards what you have inside you. There is a reason why you want to let the stories out. So what's that reason? Because I'm sure that there are other authors out there who have the same thing but are scared of letting it out. What would you tell them?
That's a tough question. For me, it's really not something I have control of, honestly. I have to create stuff. It's just how I'm wired, and it's not always been writing. It's been music, and it's been other things. But I guess what I would say is that if you at least try it, you won't regret. You won't have regrets in life, and if you try something, you're not necessarily going to be successful, and people may say mean and nasty things about you, and they have done that to me, and but I don't regret anything, and I feel good about everything that I've done and that I've tried, and then I make mistakes all the time, and I fail 9 out of 10 things I try. I fail, and that's okay. I don't know. I would just say, just go for it. Don't let other people tell you what you should be doing. Just do what's in your heart, and if you're not hurting anyone else, then just go for it.
Wow. I find that you're so open with speaking about failure and just being okay with it, and I like the way you say that it's okay to go with it, because sometimes it may work and sometimes it may not. And I like the way you put it too, because really it's not a failure. If you think of it as feedback, or if you think of it as, okay, so I failed here, but it's not the end of the world. How can I fix this and make it work again? That's feedback. That's a feedback loop right there. So that's great. And I have to share again with the viewers that when you mentioned in Cleveland that you got a comment or a review that said, I wish there were no star reviews. Oh my God. That just made me cry if that happened to me.
Yeah, I probably shed a tear or two when I first saw it, but I can laugh about it now.
Oh. And that alone feels like a huge, like, oh my God, I failed and this and that. And like, I think any other author would have said, this is it, I'm not doing this again. But true resilience is about feeling the fear, going through that pain and going through that hurt, but coming out on the other side, knowing that there is something on the other side for you. And that's what you exactly did. And that's what people need to hear, that, yeah, if you are an author, if you have a small business, if you're a speaker, whatever you do, okay? If you're a chef, I mean, think like a chef. Like, they make mistakes all the time when they cook, but do they say, I'm not going to be a chef anymore? No. They will tweak their recipe and they'll add this and that, and then they'll make it work. And that's how you want to think about setbacks and failures. Is just add an ingredient or two and make it work again.
No, I tell people, especially when I speak to groups of artists or writers, I say, what we're doing, we're not doing open heart surgery. We are not astronauts. This is not life or death. I'm writing a book, like if some random person in Iowa gives me a 1-star review on Amazon because they think it's stupid, so what? Like, I don't care. Like, it's just not that serious. It's just not.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So couple more things is, I know you mentioned something about how in the last few years you really decided to work with other authors, and you help them out with their books and for trying to format for them. What were you trying to do there?
I don't know. I don't know what I was trying to do. I've always enjoyed helping people, and it sounds cheesy and stupid, but it's the truth. I enjoy helping people. I like seeing other people succeed, and I have a lot of like very defined skill sets that aren't very useful in the real world. So like formatting ebooks is a perfect example. Like that's that's only going to help like a certain sliver of people, but if that's what I can offer, if that's a skill set I have, then I like to offer that to people. I have in the past. I mean, I think I'm to a point now where it's really hard for me to do that on an individual basis. But one of the things that I stressed in my talk in Cleveland and that I mention a lot is I tell people, like, whether you call it social karma or do unto others, I don't know, whatever you believe in, whatever sort of faith you have or idea about how the world works. I firmly believe that whatever you put out there kind of comes back to you, and it has to be genuine and good and bad. I really think that. I think what you put out is what comes back. So I just try and do no harm, and I don't always do it. Sometimes I hurt people's feelings. You call it resilience. I'm a bit stubborn. I'm an Aries. I'm kind of bullheaded at times, and I know that I inadvertently run people over, and I don't mean to, but I just try and do good, try and do no harm, and I kind of believe that eventually comes back. So I tell people, just do things, help each other out, do it without expectation. Some people will reciprocate and others won't, but that's not the point. The point is just put some good out there and it'll come back.
Yeah. And that's what I wanted to hear. And it's interesting too that I was on a coaching call with my coach, and he was saying the same thing, Jay, that when you're out there and you have someone's blog that you're reading, and if you really enjoy it, make a comment and say thank you. If you want to share it, share it, right? You don't have to, but that's okay. But it's all about giving, because you will get something back in return, but there's no expectations. So don't have that on there. So the intent in the end has to be a good intent, not about ego again, right?
Yeah. Right.
So Kathy, let's do another one. What did you hear in there as one of the traits?
Build your network.
Mm-hmm. That's what I had too. Build your network.
Yeah.
Where did you hear that
just how he likes to help other people be successful.
Yeah.
Which is a wonderful trait to have.
That's right. And we're almost to the end, so I'm just going to put on one more here, playback to build some self-esteem. And I know in Cleveland, Jay, you talked about how you knew what your strengths were, and so you used those strengths to come back again and build your, go back into writing books and doing more and more. Would you like to add anything to that?
No, I think what a lot of times people will say to me, well, I don't know what I can offer people. I don't know what people need. And what I say is just kind of find out, what is it that you offer that's you're good at, or not, maybe you're not even good at it, but it's easy for you. Sometimes we take it for granted. Things that are easy for us are very difficult for other people. So even if you can find something that you do with sort of a natural flow, and you can offer that and you enjoy it, that's all. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we're almost to the end of the show, and I would like to thank you so much for being on with us. I had a lot of fun. How about you, Kathy?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great.
How about
show.
you, Jay?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Spend some time with you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so everyone, episode number 3, make sure you stay tuned to episode number 4, which is next Sunday around the same time, and it's laughter yoga. So if you want to be just ready to laugh out loud and de-stress, join us on that day. Don't forget, make sure you join the Resilience Reflex community on Google+, and you'll access the 4-part video series on resilient health. Until next time, see you.